Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming out today. On the stage, at first, we will have Mr. Oliver Bussmann. He is the co-founder and president of Crypto Valley Association, on top of his CEO duty at Bussmann Advisory. Please put your hands together and enjoy the event. Great having you.
Yeah, Berk, thank you so much. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. This is a great pleasure and honor to be back in Istanbul, first of all, because Istanbul is, thanks to Akbank, my second home. I can say that because we spent the last 2 years really on a fantastic journey. I think the innovation team is here on the FinTech Innovation Program, and for me it was part of the journey also to have the first blockchain implementation live in production in Turkey with Ripple, something I will explain later. And I want to congratulate you on the setup of the Blockchain Turkey platform, which is exciting as a non-for-profit organization to bring all the different players of the ecosystem in Turkey and Istanbul together, because based on my experiences, we founded the Crypto Valley Association 2 years ago. It's now 1,100 members, 500 startups. It's a fantastic journey to set up this kind of business with startups, investors, corporation, government, university, research, to bring everybody together and get excited to bring business to Turkey at the end. It's becoming then a new industry. And the good thing is, what I like to talk about with you is this association, Blockchain Turkey platform, is now consisting of different companies, players, different industries. And I want to share with you my experience over the last 12 months that we are now talking about new ecosystem from an economic perspective, new businesses emerging without borders. And border stands for industry lines. And because the blockchain technology is not only there to digitalize what you have, your current business, vertical business, it's also bringing this together. And I want to walk you through the next 60 minutes about the journey that me and my team been through several projects. And from that perspective, I will get rid of my jacket because it's now hard work in creating new ecosystems. And let me start with how ecosystems are working, give you examples, and we see new business model and operating model emerging out of like 20 years ago on the internet side. So if you look at the different industries, there's a reason why you see in this association and also in the Crypto Valley Association a lot of players coming up out of the financial service industry, logistic, insurance, pharmaceutical, because in those areas, the complexity of doing business, you have multiple players, you have fragmentation of doing business, there is a need for using the blockchain technology because it will simplify and drive efficiency in those industries. And then you have front runners, and you have other industries coming up. But this is a very siloed, I have to say, a very siloed view that I've been through maybe 2 years ago. But that view has changed because it's not only that you in financial services, you talk about efficiency gains. Efficiency gains meaning over 100 billion of driving efficiency in the process, structural side in payments, in trading, in compliance, etc. These are hard numbers. So the financial service industry itself, if I only look at that industry, will go through a lot of cost changes, unit cost changes, market structure consolidation the next 5 to 10 years. It's not a sprint, because there's also a lot of regulatory requirements, regulatory changes in there. And one of the changes I'm so pleased and excited we did already in Turkey. Because as you saw, the global payment topic here, it's a very 60 billion of efficiency gain. This is a big business for all the banks. And a lot of institutional clients are complaining it takes too long to send money here from Turkey to New York, and it's cost a significant amount of money. So if you look at today, if you would send money through the SWIFT network, you work with your corresponding bank here, you send it overseas to the receiving one, you go to a network like FedWire in the US. So it takes days, sometimes 2 to 3, 5 days. And everybody involved in that chain here, and there are multiple players that chip in, they ask for commission for fees. So in general, this whole transaction is a $50 plus topic. What we will see now through the Ripple network, and Ripple is, I think, from a production perspective, the most advanced blockchain technology, because they have over 120 banks. They are just onboarded 28 banks in the third quarter. Is the network, the blockchain network, to do peer-to-peer transactions between the banks. So the network itself enables 7 days, 24 hours real-time transactions. So you don't have the error rate usually that you have in a SWIFT environment of 10 to 15%. The cost will come down from my perspective. And the next, and we did this with Akbank last year, they're working already with other banks, like Santander in the UK, etc. So it's groundbreaking because your institutional clients enjoy much better services and quality going forward. It will have an impact on your treasury business, no? So you can do a lot of stuff. It will simplify it through this. The second phase of Ripple already started last week. There's a clear distinction between the crypto assets, they have the XRP, and the blockchain technology, the network that runs that. Now they are working with payment provider to use XRP as a liquidity. So if you want to go from Turkish lira to euro, you need a liquidity pool provider, which today are corresponding banks. And I think the future is they're using the XRP to use Turkish lira to XRP, XRP to euro. So there will be liquidity provider competing for that business. So crypto will, over the next few years, we are just at the beginning, will play around also to streamline even more the whole process. So this is something, an example that from my perspective is working, and it's becoming more and more a snowball effect. But I want to move out of this very, I don't want to say narrowed, siloed view by industries and by technology. I want to move out into whatever we do, we have to always look into the other technologies. So my experiences during my time at SAP was that if you have a disruptive technology like mobility, it comes with cloud, analytic. The same also here on the blockchain. And the game changer from my perspective that I want to encourage everybody to think about is the glue for new industry are smart contracts. Smart contracts are defining the transaction, the relationships between the different parties across industries and becoming the workflow engine. And using the ledger technology to have a reference point how a workflow or a transaction should be executed and which status they are. So at the end, this smart contract technology will change the whole workflow engine that we used to build up expertise in the company, like the business process re-engineering. We're moving out of this into cross-enterprise, cross-businesses, because at the end, a smart contract defines the workflow in the case of an event, defined as a software. It defines who should be involved in that software from a counterparty perspective. It defines what are the triggers, market triggers, events, sensors that initiate those activities across the workflow. And which simplify the whole thing compared to a big monolithical implementation, that the reference information about the deal or transaction in the smart contract is stored on the ledger. So all involved parties can always reference to that and don't have to maintain everything in a duplicated way. So it becomes the glue, the horizontal glue to bring different industries together. And with that, we see new opportunities. So I see much more excitement talking about blockchain and the smart contract technology on the board level, executive level, and saying, if we utilize this technology, there are new businesses around themes coming up that will generate new revenue opportunities. So this is a study that is publicly available from McKinsey, explaining that these themes around housing, content, education, healthcare are building up cross-industry. So I will explain to you later that, for example, in the housing business, a lot of banks now starting in Europe, how can I expand my services beyond the normal banking ecosystem? How can I integrate services to make my business better and have more customer insights and generate also opportunities to bring on board other customers that I don't have? So we are talking about real opportunities here, and the discussion that we have on those executive board level is, where should I play? What's my battleground? And also continue digitalizing my existing legacy environment, because that requires an architecture that you integrate those kind of services. So we've been through several projects, and let me go through the different industries. And one of the industries that is getting disrupted is the whole mobility. You know, autonomous cars, etc. And the fears of the car makers, especially around Mercedes and BMW, etc., that somebody like Google will aggregate them. Aggregate means if you would love to book a trip from here to London, you book several mobility providers, your flights, your car, your train, and then you have to organize this in a sequence and manage dependency if there's any delays, etc. So that's something I would say they have the biggest fear, that Google has all the information from flights, from trains to book that and offer you one ticket. Now these product and service providers now try to revert that model and say, now we want to team up with train, flight, airlines and book a ticket as one smart contract. And the smart contract is at the end an Uber contract from car, flights, etc., whatever you need to organize a flight. There are banks involved, there are insurance companies involved. Every time if there's a delay, the insurance chips in and say, okay, we take over the rebooking cost. This is also being discussed with big smart city providers like the Amsterdam airport. They have 80 days per year traffic jam because there are flight delays because the runways are closed, bad weather conditions. They want that those passengers are not coming to the airport. They want to issue tickets for train and other transportation automatically. Because looking at the 80 days, the airport is at full capacity. So I think what we will see is that this technology with autonomous cars will drive new opportunities. So here the learning is teaming up with other players, defining where you want to define or how to define the smart contract, and bring this to your customers. The same also for the real estate business. Real estate is very fragmented, and we started a project in Spain with a bank. And the project was all about how can I accelerate selling a house. It takes 100 days in Spain to close a deal from a mortgage, insurance, utilities, water, electricity, phone. So we team up then with the bank with those tier 1 providers and bundle digitally these services. So a customer gets a link and saying, you know, you're almost done with your mortgage. Here are services to accelerate the onboarding of your new house or apartment. So at the end, what I'm saying is different industries are now coming together using this technology to build digital services, but they're maintaining their customer channels. So that's a big difference. They're not going to a Google or Facebook. They use their own customer channel to provide that. So it's a huge business growth opportunity, customer insights from that perspective. Moving on to supply chain. A project that we also have been through the last 12 months is an ecosystem for smart containers, especially in the pharmaceutical and food distribution. So there's a company, SkyCell here, that has over 2,000 containers. And the fun stuff with that is they have containers that cool down medication. They guarantee temperature between 5 and 7 degrees to deliver this around the world. And so it maintains the quality of the medication, which is really important. They have sensors, they monitor this. They have around about 50 people to manage these 2,000 containers. Now they're moving into smaller containers. They want to deliver, and they have this already, smaller containers to deliver the medication, living species to your home. So we're talking about millions of containers for pharma and also food delivery, because you can even deliver frozen good to your home step. So a central model that you have people managing, everything has to go through from a customs, from a insurance, invoicing. You have around about 200 touch points and documents per container that you have to manage. So the business model change now is and this ecosystem will be also available for other container providers, is you define smart contract, which is attached to a container, which defines the invoicing, the payments, the insurance, the customs information. At the end, the container becomes an autonomous driving good. So we are changing not only the hardware here and allowing transportation of goods in a sensitive way, and you can track them with IoT. You also give them a chance to minimize the administrative overhead and then also the digital integration of different players. And so that's something that I see more and more in the supply chain areas. These kind of ecosystem platforms are merging. What's also the message is, in these areas, we not only see one player or one platform, there will be multiple. And then over time, we will see who will be the most important one, has the most critical volumes on that. We see this in the trade finance area. You know, big ledger providers like R3, they're building on trade finance platforms to bring the whole trade finance on the platform between the different banks, different goods suppliers. I know that also Turkish banks are working as part of the project on that too. The same also in the retail business. The retail business is fragmented, so you can, from my perspective, bring like Beam in the Middle East. They're the #1 wallet, crypto wallet and e-wallet with 700 users, 700,000 users, 4 million smart contracts executed. They provide insights for the retailer. So all the retailers using this as a loyalty program in an open way. And then also you can use the points that you raised also to pay for your next drink or whatever you want on the retail side. So from my perspective, also here an open ecosystem, a lot of retailers are chipping in and using the technology to drive a new experience for the user and for the company insights. The big things I think this blockchain, Turkey blockchain platform has the opportunity, from my perspective, is to become a network of different industry players to develop these smart contract decentralized apps. And one example that I want to share with you that started last year is Spanish banks, utilities, telcos set up a consortium called Alastria. And the idea is to build an application development environment and network operation for those decentralized apps between the members. And I think that's important, is enabling that you could, across the aisle, across the different industry, could team up and build those decentralized apps and generate revenue opportunities with that across the different use cases. They're also working on digital identity, meaning also, you have to be, you need a digital identity for whatever you do on the smart contract from that perspective. So what I'm saying to you is, I think we see these kind of ecosystem foundation now popping up in Europe. And my recommendation is, yes, utilize what you have with different players in the blockchain Turkey platform already. Think about big, how you bring those players together and bring new applications cross-industry together. And that generates opportunities and insights. Because at the end, something that I want to stress is you see changes in the business model. And changes in business model means, if you go 20 years ago in booking your flights and trips, etc., you have to do this by yourself. Then the integration platforms like Expedia or Google try to aggregate this on the customer side. The changes now are coming, and if you team up with your peers or different players of different industry and bring this kind of digital services in the supply chain, in housing, in mobility together, you maintain the customer access. That means at the end, these services will be provided as a white label services to your customers. So there is no aggregator in place. You maintain the customer interface for all these players. You get also opportunities from your ecosystem partners out of this network that are maybe not members or customer of your own services. Because this is a very decentralized governance, it's also resiliencies, there's failover, etc. So it's a different way how you operate this. So the discussion then at the end is, after we realize, is it working in these projects? Is the smart contract able to integrate different services as a new user experience to the customer? The discussion then goes over, okay, so I'm not going to a central model in aggregating demand on a central platform, which would not attract all your competitors or everybody to bring critical mass and flow business to the platform. We are switching the model into the supply side. That means the product and the supply providers are collaborating and bundling their services in utilizing these smart contracts. So the biggest change, I would say, it's not only the technology that you combine services, is the way how you operate these networks in a decentralized way. So, and that's the discussion that you always have, is what are the governance body to manage these networks? In the blockchain area, we know that there are foundations driving standards on the business pro side, governance oversight, etc. But then the rest of the network is pretty much through the node provider running by themselves. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. The discussion at the end is an operating governance discussion. So we went through these projects always in the same way. We say, okay, we got approached by certain firms and saying, we want to be the leader in the housing, the mobility, in the supply chain. What are the tier one partners that we should team up? It's almost like a Miles & More or the Turkish Airlines program. Who else can I bring into my alliance? And there's a competition already out there because there is a limited pool of tier one partners outside your industry. Then you go usually into discussion, what is the service in the value chain? Is it already buying a house, or is it later in bringing up the house up to speed? So you discuss when the service should kick in and how you combine services. And it's almost like business process reengineering. You define your process model, or process model across the entire, these players. And then there are smart contracts, tools, and languages modeling this in an easy way across those parties. And it means this smart contract discussion, this whole process, we did this with several projects, it's a 2-3 months discussion point. And then the implementation with integration also into their booking systems, yeah, it's another 2-3 months on top of that. But the hard part, I have to say, afterwards, was how we want to set up this utility. What is the governance model? Who is investing? Who should be in the driver's seat? How we want to work together. And we have developed decentralized governance frameworks on that we believe, I think the next venture that we're moving into is more a cooperative model, a mutual society, legal setup perspective. So it shows you that, and it's important from my perspective, is the technology can always lead back to these existing business models. But the hard part is now that the technology allows us to have a notary for our network that doesn't have to be centralized because you define how the notary should be executed. But it has to be agreed on what are the standards to execute the business. And so the operating model and governance model is important. So what are the lessons learned also in going through those projects is you need an ecosystem mindset. Mindset meaning it's not only enough to digitalize your existing and simplify your existing legacy environment and drive an open architecture going forward. It requires that you have to think about in which of these new ecosystems you want to play. Where do you see revenue opportunities? Where do you see other players? How can you expand your business strategy embracing that? You have to also understand that these new ecosystems will give you much more insights about the customers, assuming the customer agrees to that, is how their customer is working outside the traditional scope of business. So that's something that we also see the usage of the workflow data, the preferences, also drives more offerings going forward. What we also see is that the way how you work together with your peers and also peers out of your other industries requires different skills and capabilities. Because you have to figure out who is out there, you have to find a connection, you have to set up a win-win situation because in most of the cases, the business case that you're going through has to be beneficial for all parties. So it requires a different mindset how you work with your peers. And because we maintain the customer access to the platform, so that means we are not centralizing this to a Google or Apple, etc. It gives you access to customer, and using these additional services gives you a much more emotional ties to your customer. So I believe this is a journey that we will go through the next few years, but it shows you it's a radical change how we do business, very similar what we saw 20 years ago with the internet platforms, Web 2.0, Web 3.0 coming up. It's happening now through these new technology like an IoT with smart contracts, etc. So at the end, what I'm always saying, and we had a long discussion also with different banks and other companies, you have to think about blockchain itself, blockchain as an ecosystem. When is the right time to invest? Because you can wait, you can have a second follower approach, but the worst case is if this kind of new technology is kicking in here, there will be an inflection point. And in an inflection point, and I've been through this on the technology side, if you are not ready, if you don't have the talents, the ideas, etc., it's almost too late to catch up, because the acceleration in those areas can be 6 to 12 months. So that's the reason why I'm saying I think it's great to see the Blockchain Turkey platform coming up, because you work together, you see opportunities, you see chances how to work together. Because that's something that I learned also the last 2 years, is in the moment there is a team, in our case, 1,100 members. You get a lot of insights from a regulatory business, from a investment perspective, and it gives you much more insight in which phase certain businesses are in leveraging the blockchain technology. So I can only applaud you to setting up this foundation, and it will drive Turkey from my perspective, because I think the numbers of members, the quality is really excellent from my perspective. And so I can only say thank you for having me, and I think we have enough time for your questions. So thank you.
So, Oliver, thank you very much for an amazing presentation. Let's ask the audience if they have any questions for you. Sure, it's all crystal clear. I never see that on blockchain space. Yep, we have one over there.
Hello, everyone. My question is for you, Mr.
And
Oliver.
who you are and where you coming from again?
My name is Khawla. I am from Morocco. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having us. Actually, I have read your article on Forbes recently.
Yep.
And also on your website.
Yeah.
You were speaking mostly about permissionless and permissioned ledgers. Yeah. You were talking about a future which is very far, but also very close. So my question is, how do you see this future in developing countries and also in third world countries, like countries in Africa and also India and countries like this? Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're referring to my blog on Forbes that I published on Tuesday, also talking about growth opportunity with new networks. First part of the question about permission and permissionless ledger. In this environment, enterprises always start in a permission environment too. It's almost, I compare this with intranet versus internet. So you have the numbers of players, you know them, you have clear gates from that perspective. In a permission environment, you need customer onboarding, KYC, knowing your client, AML, anti-money laundering. You need everything ready for that. I think we will go there. We will go into an open network, because then integration of parties into the platform will be a very simple onboarding. So expansion of these platforms in an open way is required. It's very simple. I want to give an example why I think that discussion, we will laugh about this discussion about permission and permissionless ledger. It's almost like 20 years ago. I was, at that time at IBM, we talked to a lot of banks. Should I bring my e-banking on internet, on the public internet or on the AOL internet, which is a closed shop environment? And we know that today this discussion is useless today, because it's an open public internet. So you have to do a lot of security, the way how you do business, you have to protect them. I think we will have the same topic here too. So coming to emerging country, like in Africa, etc., because the effort in doing application is a fraction compared to a traditional one, I believe this is perfect for developing countries. Because the platform here to develop applications are more and more there. And what I see is that looking at Mercedes, just to give you an example, Mercedes, the effort to do this in the blockchain environment here, they did a comparison to bring this to traditional languages and servers, etc., this is 1/3 of the cost. So in constrained resource environments, knowledge environments, I think the blockchain technology has a fantastic opportunity to spearhead a change, leapfrog. Now, we know that mobility bypassed the whole fixed line in Africa. I think blockchain has the same topic probability also to do new businesses. Yeah? Okay. Next question, there's a question in the back.
Hello. My name is Alpan Görüş. I'm the CEO of BTC Türk. And I'm aware that you are also chairman of the association in Zug Valley.
Yeah.
I'd like to know more about the status of the Zug Valley, and specifically I would like to know more about the legal status of cryptocurrencies at Switzerland and the ecosystem over there.
It's a very good point, because I think we had a discussion with the steering committee during lunch, and I also got the same question about what are the learnings in setting up a non-for-profit association. And let me explain a little bit the story about Crypto Valley in Switzerland. So there were already startups, early startup working with crypto and Bitcoin 2012, 2013. I think the catalyst was 2014, the foundation, the Ethereum Foundation, you know, the Ethereum, the Ether, etc. They set up their foundation and certain development activities in that town called Zug. And that attracted a lot of other startups. There was an ecosystem built up on people that understand the law from a crypto and from a blockchain perspective, tax, accounting. The government even allowed in certain areas the usage of Bitcoin and Ether. So the government itself, the regulator, built expertise in that area. We started 2015, 16 with informal meetups. So we were able to bring the community for drinks and networking together. And then we got approached end of 2016 to set up this, like the Blockchain Turkey platform, to run this as a non-for-profit association. The key learning is you run this like a startup. There was no funding, there was nothing. We were 5 people setting this up. And we decided to go for a decentralized approach. We invited the community to work on regulation, technology, research, on tax, accounting, and we published these learnings through social media, and we established this as a global brand and set up the community to 1,100 members now. And Crypto Valley is now involved in consultation with the government, with other governments, and exchanging our experiences and recommendations. So it becomes a really big trade fair government body. And that attracts business, so investors, startups, corporations, research, universities, and working together on these topics. And that gives you the platform to communicate, request, and engage with the community. So now the whole crypto business is in Zug or in Zurich, in Switzerland, 500 startups. So it's a significant business around the startup business, plus tax, legal, software development, helping that to do so. So what I'm describing to you is starting from scratch. You can build an industry if you bring all the players together and engage with them, communicate what you see, and bring tangible impact. And that gives you the credibility to attract business. The catalyst for Crypto Valley, I would say, the boost, was the access to the global capital market. As a startup in Switzerland, there was always an issue. I think seed money was not a problem, but to grow, scale investments. There were limited venture capital VC firms in Switzerland. With the initial coin offering, ICO, you get access. It's like an IPO globally, access of funding, 20, 30 million for your SME business. So at the end, because the regulator helped to define the boundaries, the way how they are classified, these ICOs, how they should be treated, attracted almost every year 600 million. In an industry that now the government were thinking about to set up a central venture fund of $1 billion, that was possible through these global fundraising. So it has already an impact on the whole crowdfunding structure globally, how you raise money going forward. What we see already is that established stock exchanges now preparing for this kind of security token. It's not only that you get paid for your services, also that you hand over a share of a company in the future. They're preparing for that. It's become a much more stabilized, regulated business. So what I'm saying to you is, like here, you have the foundation, you have a lot of players. If you bring them together, work on these topics, you have a chance to attract investors, startups, knowledge, and drive the location as a leading blockchain nation in the region, I would say. And that's something, it's doable. That's something that it doesn't need millions or billions. Now, so we had nothing at the beginning. So it's a very much a bottom-up approach versus some other approaches like Singapore. You have 250 million in a fintech budget and you spread out. That's a little bit, the Swiss way is the opposite. It's a decentralized, engaging the community. Okay? There's one more question.
Shams. All right.
There's one more here.
The gentleman over there.
Hello, Can Doğan Orlu, SGR Istanbul. If it's not too confidential, how does the banking industry approach to blockchain and smart contracts? And are you working in any way to build up the fundamentals? And how does the regulatory framework respond to your works in Turkey?
Yeah, if you can go back to page 4 or 5, that would be good. On the banking side, it's very much, one more? Yeah, it's very much along those use cases. So you see a lot of banks in the trade finance, in payment, on the exchange side, working, but using the technology to simplify your current complexity. The banks are, if it comes to ecosystems, if you go 2 slides more, 2 or 3, they are very engaged because they see growth opportunity. They're bypassing right now in Europe the whole crypto business. First of all, the crypto business is very small compared to other existing business. Secondly, there's a risk of to get punished if you don't follow strict onboarding of customers. The issue is with crypto, a lot of banks, and we see this also in Switzerland, is what are the compliance checks to accept money from investors or startup out of their ICO? Because that could lead to anti-money laundering cases, and you get hammered from the regulator from that perspective. So we spend time, the Crypto Valley Association and the Banking Association, so the Association of all bankers, to develop guidelines. What are the AML and KYC regulatory requirements to onboard blockchain startups getting money through cryptocurrencies, or also bring an investor with cryptocurrency into the banking system? Now, because you have the line between cryptocurrency and fiat. So you want to make sure that this money, the crypto money, is clean and is legitimate. So because there is no central place saying how crypto money should be treated, we work together with the different parties to build this together. The challenge is that I have to say that you can be very good to explain that to the banks. But if you act as an international bank, the driving force are the US regulator. Because if you do business over there, and even if they have higher standards, then you have to follow those standards. So this is the reason why I think the G7 is working. They have a task force on stability working on those AML KYC standards. So in the moment we have a global understanding how crypto should be treated, that they are legitimate money, because you can flow money through that system, blockchain system, I think the banks will come on board. I see also that established players like an exchange, like the Swiss exchange, now also going into the crypto business and offering digital assets next year as a trading point of view. So bottom line, everything related to blockchain and business enablement, very progressive, very forward-looking. Using crypto as an asset, we are at the beginning of the journey. And it's a right question because, again, there are, regulatory penalties, etc., if you're not in line with those national and international regulations. Okay? Bert?
Oh, there's this lady over there.
Okay,
after her.
Sure.
Hi, thanks for the speech and thanks for coming to Turkey. Well, as you having almost the widest perspective about the blockchain projects among all the sectors, do you have a realistic criticism about the manner, the approach to the technology? Because we know that people are aware of the opportunities, but what about the limits? So, are they aware of the limits, you think?
Yeah, I think there are limits today. I think there are technology limits. I think there's a race for between the ledgers, between Ethereum and EOS, etc. There's a scalability issue. Ethereum has 13 transactions per second. In the banking environment, this would be impossible to run your bank on that. There are new projects running 100,000 and more transactions like Ripple per second. So it's a scalability performance issue. There is a social responsibility issue because the traditional ledgers like a Bitcoin requires confirmation through mining companies, and that requires a lot of energy. So I think there is a race to minimize the energy consumption and make it more scalable and performance from that perspective. On the ethical point of view is exactly what we said before, is making sure that these access points to access to money are well maintained and managed, because that could lead to misuse of the whole system. I think that these are the areas that I can see that we have to keep in mind, and your question is absolutely spot on. What are the risks and critical success factors to make this the future business model like the internet 20 years ago? Yeah. Okay. One more?
Should I go ahead and ask? Oliver, thanks for the story.
Yeah.
It was really, really impressive. And it makes me think of the fact that this town called Zug, it's how big is the population? It's like around 30,000 or so.
Yeah,
right?
it's 30,000. So it's a small community. Everybody knows each other. So you can go to the city mayor and have a...
You can directly talk to him.
You can talk to him. You can talk to the tax authorities. So there's an open door policy, and yeah, it's a small. Okay, so it's nothing compared to Istanbul.
Okay, that's great. That was my original point. So, with the lens of the scale, and given the fact that Turkey's new medium-term economic program includes ICEO, and it says that as a contemporary and dynamic, creative way of raising capital, foreign, I assume, ICOs will be here. So when compared to an ecosystem up in Zug, and when compared to an hypothetical ecosystem, in Istanbul, how do you approach on that one?
No, I think you have a fantastic opportunity. You have much more. You have a bigger talent pool. You already work together on the cross-industry side together. Just to give you a perspective, the whole market capitalization of the token, the cryptos, is 200 billion. Around about 50 billion is Crypto Valley Zug related. No? So you could easily get to that topic. It's not a sprint, I have to say that. It's a multi-year exercise. and you have to always keep in mind the different players. So you have to attract the startups out of the region. We have friends here from Azerbaijan, Morocco, etc. I think that's an opportunity to bring know-how in there. You have to think about how to bring investors in, or mobilizing existing investors to invest in that. You have a fantastic network of universities. So the Crypto Valley Association did a first IEEE conference with 20 universities on research papers. So you can come also from a research angle perspective. As I mentioned before, you have corporations already here that like to work together, which is a great starting point. So, and I think working with the Turkish government is very important. I think your finance minister announced that he's supportive of ICOs. That's a fantastic change and opportunity to get access to risk capital. So having this in mind, I think, can you become the leading blockchain ecosystem in the region? Absolutely. And I think the energy is there, the movement is there. That's the reason why I'm here. Istanbul, as I said before, is my second home because there's so much going on.
One last question, possibly. No?
Can I go to the last page? Because I want to... Now, I think I want to stay in contact with you because I think there are so many questions and topics. There was a point already. I have blogs on my website, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Feel free to follow me. There's always, and this is important, is the Turkish social media community is big. Let's use them, engage them, and like me here, I'm happy to continue the discussion. And again, thank you so much for having me. This is a fantastic opportunity. Thank you.